All right. Good morning, Corona Daze Professional Development Group. I am Danette Edwards, the founder of Corona Daze Professional Development Group, and today I'm here with Chrissy Kiles. She's going to talk to us about strategies to build career recovery and resilience. Today, we're going to learn things that you can control in your career during this time of uncertainty with COVID. We're also going to learn some helpful strategies to start the career recovery process. And then finally, we're going to learn that by utilizing these strategies, you can begin to build career resilience to adapt to the new normal. A little about Chrissy. Chrissy is a higher education professional with almost 4 years of experience in student affairs. She currently works in career services full-time by day, and by evening and weekend, she is the host of the Bliss with Chris podcast, which focuses on college, careers, and social justice issues. Chrissy is currently applying for a master's in mental health counseling and hopes to eventually become a licensed professional counselor and continuing to work with college students and maybe on her own practice. In her spare time, Chrissy likes to try new foods and restaurants, scroll through TikTok, and watch documentaries on Netflix and Hulu. So guys, today, well, thank you, Chrissy, for being here. Let me just say that. Thank you again for joining us. Guys, today, Chrissy is going to take comments and questions during her presentation, and then we'll also call for questions and Q&A. I'm going to stop my camera and mute myself and turn it over to you, Chrissy. Thank you again for being here with us.
And thank you for having me. I do have a PowerPoint, so I'm going to share that as well. Okay, let me share screen. Okay, so you guys should see my PowerPoint with my logo on it. Let me know if that's not the case. Okay, so today we're going to talk about strategies to build career recovery and resilience. That should be resilience. So a little bit about me. I'm in higher ed. I am currently in career services. I've been doing this for about 1.5 years, but I've also worked in diversity and inclusion during my time in graduate school. That's kind of where I got my start in higher education. I've also worked for 1 year in a grant program called Gear Up, which is focused on helping middle schoolers and high schoolers become aware of college. And once they are in high school, we do activities, especially once they're a senior, to help them transition from high school to college. So that's my higher ed background. I'm looking to transition. I want to stay in higher ed, but I want to move into mental health counseling. So hopefully working within a university counseling center once I hopefully get into the master's program and complete it and pass my licensing exam. So that's kind of where I see myself long-term, and doing maybe some counseling on my own as my own private practice on the side as well. I do podcast. I started, it was kind of a work from home when I was working from home project, and I knew I wanted to do one this year, but I kept putting it off. But once we were working from home for the last few months, I was like, well, there's no excuses now. So I just went for it. And so I've been podcasting for about 7 months now. And I like to consider myself a social justice advocate always. Okay, so this is the dictionary version of resilience. It's basically the ability to recover from or adjust to changes. So I like to always share my own stories when I present. I think that just humanizes the experience. So I'll share kind of my own, what I think is both recovery and resilience in my own life. So the picture on the left is from when I attended community college where I live, and I actually was on full ride scholarship, but I'd say my freshman semester, the second part of my freshman year, is a time when that was the first time I realized I was suffering from mental health problems. So I was very depressed, and I found it hard to get up and go to class and get out of bed. But I didn't realize it then, but definitely looking back now, I probably could have used some mental health resources then to just cope with that transition from high school to college. I went to a small school in high school, and then most of my classmates, they might have started college that first semester after we graduated, but there were very few of us left that second semester. A lot of people just quit. So I felt very alone that second semester. So anyways, long story short, I wasn't attending classes, wasn't doing homework, therefore getting bad grades. And so I lost my scholarship, had to pay it back, but I was pretty much borderline deciding whether I wanted to give it another try my sophomore year or just quit college altogether and find something else to do. So I decided to give it one more try, and I actually still graduated on time. I was on track to graduate with my associates in 2 years, and so I was able to do that. But it definitely took taking a lot more hours that second year in order to stay on that track. So I like to think of that kind of as an example of recovery and resilience early on in my life. So the second picture is once I transferred to a 4-year institution, graduating there and receiving my bachelor's. So from bachelor's degree to my master's degree, I actually have a master's in adult and higher education. So I was actually, I got my bachelor's in, it's called Family and Consumer Science Education, which is like home economics. Thought I wanted to teach high schoolers, but I realized I wanted to work with college students. I had good mentors in my life in college, and so I wanted to give that back to other college students. So I went straight on and received my master's in adult and higher education. I would say that job search post grad school was pretty rough on me. I was not used to getting so many rejections, I guess. I knew that I was a good candidate because I was getting invited to second round interviews on campuses. So I know that, you know, I was a finalist for several positions, but to like get that far and then to hear no, a lot of times was very rough that summer after I completed that. So by the end of July, I said, if I don't have a job before August, I might just have to find a job in another industry just to try to make ends meet. So I was almost not going to be in the field that I got my master's in. But the end of July, I did receive a job offer with Gear Up. And so I had my foot in the door. So I think the thing in my field is if you can get your foot in the door and stay in a position for a little bit, that allows you to have more opportunities to transition to other places in higher ed. So with that being said, I stayed in that position for about a year, and I'm applied for my current role in career services at Oklahoma State University. And so this last picture on the right is whenever I received my job offer. So I'd say life kind of came full circle for me. That was the area I knew I wanted to be in after I graduated with my master's. So full circle recovery and resilience just in my own personal life. So with recovery, I would say it's just, this is actually another dictionary definition of it, returning to normal state of health, strength, and regaining control of something lost. Okay. I think the first thing when you think about recovering from something is to feel the feels. I know the term grief, we often use it to like in the situation when you lose a loved one or a friend. It's often used in when someone passes away. But grief is not limited to just losing someone. It's losing jobs, losing a role, any major loss in your life you can grieve over it. And I think sometimes we give ourselves a hard time when it's not losing someone, because we feel like we're not allowed to grieve because it wasn't the loss of a life. So I would say just give yourself permission to feel your feelings and grieve if you have lost a job or just any aspect of your life that you've lost during COVID. I know a lot of people have lost different things. So I'd say start with feeling those feelings and allow yourself to be sad about losing whatever that is, or whatever emotion you feel about that. I wouldn't be me without having a self-care or mental health related PSA. So I'd say sometimes it's easy to take care of yourself when you are feeling down, but I think of health as beyond your body. I think it's taking your mind, body, and spirit, and refilling your cup in those three aspects of yourself. I think, when you take care of your body, that helps with your mind. And then if you take care of your mind and spirit, that kind of helps you be more well-rounded. And so think about the ways that you can integrate self-care. I'd say sometimes we think of self-care as like a spa day or going to get your nails done, but it's not limited to just those things. I think anytime you do something that's going to better yourself for the future, that is an act of self-care. So sometimes that might be scheduling your doctor's appointment or scheduling to meet with a counselor. So don't think of self-care as just one thing, and also just remember that you do have other aspects of yourself that do need to be refilled. And so I think it's like a trifecta effect when thinking about self-care. Okay, so as mentioned in my bio, I do like to watch Netflix documentaries and just movies. This was one I watched, it probably was August or September. It's called The Playbook. And Coach Dawn Staley, she coaches the University of South Carolina women's basketball team. And one of her quotes that she lives by for her team is the 24-hour rule. And so what the 24-hour rule is whether the team comes off on a really good win or victory or a crushing loss, they have 24 hours to soak it in, I guess is the best way to put it. So after those 24 hours go by, they're no longer allowed to either be super excited about it or sad about it anymore. They have to focus on what's coming next. So the next game or whatever's coming up next for them. So I liked that because I think this is also relevant to our current situation. And I'm not saying, it has to be only 24 hours. Take the time that you need. But I'd say part of that recovery process is giving yourself time to grieve, but then you have to start taking actions to recover. You can't just stay in that state of mind. So that was my advice from The Playbook. And so I'd say whatever your time needs to be, take it, but then realize that in order to move from point A to B, you do have to start implementing action steps in order to recover and build resilience. So we'll talk about starting the recovery process. I'd say it's not going to be linear, as this picture kind of indicates. The recovery process is, I'd say it's kind of a cycle, I guess, more so than a linear process. Sometimes it's taking smaller steps, which are what you feel like are smaller steps, but those small steps over time can help you not only recover, but build that resiliency. All right, so it wouldn't be a presentation without me kind of implementing steps I generally tell my students, but I think that they're applicable in today's climate. So we'll start with informational interviewing. And what this is it's meant to be a casual conversation with someone that is either in a position that you're interested in or in an industry you're interested in. And it's your chance to get to know what a day in the life of that career path is like, or just asking them questions to get insider information about that career. I'd say one thing that kind of helped me even decide to pursue my master's was talking to people. My master's in mental health counseling is talking to people that are counseling currently, because I was pretty much confused. There's different routes you could take to be a counselor. There's like marriage and family therapy, there's licensed professional counselors, LPCs, and then there's licensed social workers. So I was talking to people that were the different, that took the different routes just to get more insight on that, to help me better choose, like, okay, is this the route I want to go? What are the benefits of going LPC versus another field? So I just asked them their questions, those type of questions, and like, what are the highs and lows of being a counselor, and those type of questions. So I'd say really the kind of neat thing about what's going on right now is that I think more people are making those intentional connections. And I'd say most people are willing to take a few minutes out of their time, of their day, to answer questions that are career related. So don't be afraid to reach out and do an informational interview. Job shadowing, I know in-person shadowing might not be an option, but we're learning just in our work in career services that virtual opportunities are becoming available in certain fields. Some of the students that we work with in my college are the pre-health students. So in order for them to get to apply for some of the professional programs after they graduate, they have to have a certain number of shadowing opportunities. So we're learning that some doctors and dentists and other medical professionals are offering virtual shadowing opportunities so that students can still meet those hours to make their application a stronger application once they apply for medical school. I haven't looked at other industries yet, but I'm sure that more virtual opportunities are becoming available. If shadowing is not something you could do, maybe volunteering. Again, I know that it might be a virtual opportunity, but volunteering in an industry that you're interested in can help you to gain insider information just as an informational interviewing. But even if you volunteer at an organization that's not directly related to the industry you want to be in, I still think there's value in giving your time back and using your skills in order to help your community. Assessments, I'd say some assessments can help you get insight on maybe careers that are similar related to what you were doing before COVID, or what you kind of aspire to be. I'd say sometimes you have to be careful with assessments, especially free ones. Like I know the Enneagram is popular, but I'd say trust the ones that have been tested over time, like one's called the Strong Interest Inventory. I think that students gain a lot of information from that because it aligns what they're interested in with careers that would be a good match based on their interests. And I think that one gives students a lot of insight because they learn about careers that they had probably never been exposed to. And I love whenever they ask me like, oh, what does this thing do? So if you have the means to be able to take, we call them premium assessments, but what that means is students have to pay for some of the assessments that are more in depth. If you have the opportunity to take one of those, I'd say do that, but there's also free ones that are maybe scaled down versions of those that you could take online. So assessments, I think, can give you a better picture of what do I already have that can translate to a different industry or occupation. Additional training. So sometimes I think people have a misconception that they have to go back to college and get a degree, whether it's an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree or master's degree. Even though I work in higher ed, I'd say that's not necessarily always the case. Training could be going to a vocational school and receiving a certificate in something, which may or may not take 2 or more years, depending on what you're going to trade school for. But I'd say look at training beyond a 2-year or 4-year degree. There's opportunities to get certified through either VOTEC or all of these certifications online now. So I'd say if you are considering additional training, you have to look at the return on investment to see if it's worth your time and energy, and if there's a cost associated with it, is that cost going to benefit you right now and give you better opportunities in the future. So I'd say take that with a grain of salt, if you will. And of course, I had to plug in career services. If you either attended a 2-year or 4-year institution, even some trade schools have a career services office. I'd say check to see what they, what either webinars they have at that institution, or if they have just any alumni newsletters that go out. And I know some institutions even still allow for their alumni to see what jobs are posted on their jobs board. So I'd say don't forget about career services at your institution, even if you are not attending college anymore. Okay. Next, I would say reframing context. So we have 2 apples here. They're still apples, even though one is red and one is green. My interpretation of that is that your career journey, what you thought you might have been pre-COVID, it might change post-COVID, or once, I kind of don't like using this term new normal, but that's kind of the state we're in right now. So once we kind of return to that, your career might not look like what you had pictured in the past. So I'd say just kind of be open to a career change and things looking differently than they did pre-COVID. So think about what are the facts, what are some things you can control. I think part of resiliency is accepting that hardships are just a part of life. Life is not going to always be easy. And that's not to say that you still can't feel down or sad about what's going on, but now that we've been almost a year in, it's kind of like you still have to move forward because we know that this is kind of a longer term than what we probably thought it was going to be. So it's all about, okay, how am I going to bounce back from this? And I think this resilience is going to be something that future employers are going to look at to see, you know, is this candidate able to adapt to changing situations? Because I would say even if you haven't lost your job, parts of your job have definitely changed over the last several months. So even resiliency within that, I think context shows that you have to be able to adapt to the changing climates of career. Okay, so some questions you can reflect on as you are thinking about building resilience, and just recovering. So think about the transferable skills that you may already have. So I know that that's something that we probably hear a lot, but it's really true. One thing that we try to help encourage students is that even though they might be, in aviation, in like their bachelor's that they're working on is in aviation, think about the things that you have learned from your job, maybe working at a restaurant or I don't know, your leadership experience on campus. How does this relate to your future career in aviation? And sometimes it's a little bit of a stretch for students in certain situations, but just training them to use the language of, what skills they've gained from those opportunities on campus and how that, and really getting them to see like their experience does transfer to other industries. It's just a matter of how do you package that. So think about your package and what you already have that could translate over to either another industry or career. We often use management experience just as our example for students. If you, got promoted as a manager within your organization, even if it is a pizza joint, that shows that you have demonstrated your ability to stay within the same job and also be to manage people. Someone trusted you to be able to manage people. So if you have management experience somewhere else, I really think that could be a good transferable skill to other places. So another question is, are there opportunities to get a good ROI on additional training? I kind of talked about this earlier, but really this could take some time to think through and doing some math. So I'd say look at the costs associated with that training, and whether it's a weekend type of training, vocational trade, school training. It could be an associate's degree. I think there's talks in higher ed kind of that the 2-year college might see growth during this period of time, because it's a little easier to get a degree within 2 years instead of the 4-year degree. I don't want to say it's easier, but it's not as long. So they predicted that community colleges would grow. I haven't actually followed up on this in a while, so I don't know what the result has been so far. But anyways, is a 2-year degree going to be worth spending 2 years getting versus a 4-year degree? Or if you already have a bachelor's degree, is a master's going to give you a good return on investment for your future? So I think that takes some time to kind of think about and think through. But again, I just want to reiterate that it doesn't always take a degree. This doesn't always mean a degree. Training is multiple things. And then I'd say another deeper question is, what is your career big picture? I think I know I struggled with this during COVID. It's hard to see past like a couple months out, honestly. And so if you are thinking short term, that's great. But then, COVID is not going to be, I don't think, on the scale that it is like forever. So think about not only your short term career goals, but also where do you see yourself longer term? And it's okay if that changes. We know that career is not linear, and there's multiple changes that happen and opportunities that come your way down the line. So there might be a couple of pivots that you do along the way, but as long as you kind of have the big picture and you don't have to have the little minor details, I think you're in good shape. So the good thing about career resilience is that resilience is a tool, I'd say tool, that you could master over time. It's not just you're either born with it, or if you're not born with it, you don't have it type of thing. It's, I think just as recovery is not linear, resilience is not just a linear process. You just build it as time goes on. It doesn't just apply to the job search. So I think it applies to all aspects of life. Being a parent, I'm not a parent, but I feel like I'm sure being a parent, you do have to learn resiliency in raising children, in your relationships, even whether you're dating or married, your family relationships. So resilience, I'd say, talking about career resilience, but it doesn't just apply to just careers or the job search. And even within, if you are not searching for a job, I think we're all having to try to build resiliency right now with everything, and either working from home or kind of flexing our work between work and home. Some of us are juggling not only working from home, but having spouses and children at home with us while we're working. So finding that, I never say work-life balance, but finding that work-life juggle and playing those multiple roles. So resilience is a multifaceted thing that is just a part of life, I'd say. I'd say you have to be willing to use multiple tools. You might try one thing and it may not work for you, but please just don't give up and try other things. And even with trying one thing, you might have to try that one thing multiple different times in order for it to work. So just be willing to use multiple things, and also using them over and over again. I think that is just a part of resiliency. Is, you know, you might be told no or be ignored a few times, but taking that step to try again, I think, is part of building resiliency. And then finally, I'd say this kind of has been my motto during COVID, is to give yourself grace. It is mentally exhausting what we're going through some days. And so not just being hard on yourself, there are some things that are way beyond our control right now. And it's not you as a person, it's just the state that we're in right now. So I'd say just remember that. So give yourself grace. As long as you are trying and putting in some effort, I'd say listen to your body. I think that's one of my biggest lessons out of this, has just been learning when to rest, and learning when, you know, capitalizing on whenever I have higher energy, and using that energy at that time. And then when I'm not feeling as energetic and truly am exhausted, just learning to rest. So I think there's kind of this misconception when this all started, that we all had to be productive because we were at home. So that just in people's heads, I think that meant that, oh, we have all this time at home now, so we need to be really productive. And when reality, we don't have to be more productive than we were before all of this happened. We're in a situation that probably none of us have ever been in before. So it's okay to not always be on top of things or productive. I think just learning that balance between, okay, what can I do now while I have the energy and time, and then learning when your body needs a break. So just give yourself that grace to be, you know, either feeling tired or overwhelmed, because this situation makes sense to feel tired and overwhelmed. Okay, so as far as takeaways for today that I hope that you gained from this presentation. So it's easy to feel overwhelmed, but again, take a minute to check in with yourself and recognize your feelings. I think one thing I've learned also is sometimes I'll say it for myself, I tend to, if I'm feeling not having a good day, I try to kind of overcompensate for that by distracting myself and either working more or kind of numbing out and like sitting on the couch and watching TV. But in reality, I probably should work on, okay, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling right now? And actually being okay sitting with that. So I think when we ignore our feelings over time, they build up, and then that's whenever we either like lash out or we're just to that point of total exhaustion where we're probably not going to be productive that day. So being okay with feeling whatever you're feeling right now. So remember to reframe the context, personal facts. So think about what you can control versus what you can't control. You can control doing some of the activities that I mentioned earlier, but there's some things that you can't control. And so I think finding that balance between, I can't control this, but I still do have control over this. I think that's what resilience is all about. It's not about the situation that you're in right now, it's how you react to it. So are you just gonna sit and not take action, or are you committed to taking steps daily or weekly in order to try to make the situation a little bit better and coping with it? And then finally, having a self-care plan. In the process of all of this, I think it's easier if you have a plan already to implement whenever you do need some self-care time versus like having one of those days where you need more TLC and not having a plan. So I think if you plan now, and it could be as simple as a playlist on either Spotify or YouTube, having a playlist for you. I have one that's called Feel Good on YouTube. And so if I need to like feel a little bit better that day, I'll play that playlist. So it doesn't have to be extravagant, like going and get a massage, but having that self-care plan so that when you need it, you already have the plan, and you can just focus on implementing the plan and hopefully feel better later on. So those are my references. And then if you would like to contact me, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, and that is my email address. And if there are any questions, I am happy to take them.
Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you. Great information. Let me look into the chat. I have comments in the chat. I don't have any questions, which is okay. And I think I tagged you and Adriana. Adriana is in our group, and she did a couple of presentations for us. And the first one she did was mental health and leadership. And I'm gonna send that link to you. I think you two should connect.
Okay.
An excellent presentation on mental health and leadership, and shared her personal journey with the mental health challenges. And I think you guys should connect. So I don't have anything in the chat in terms of questions, which is okay, guys. I'm gonna go ahead to my questions, and let me just check again before I start. And if there's anything that comes up, please drop it here, and I'll come back after my second question and look into the chat again. All right, so Corona Daze Professional Development Group. We were founded in April, of course, in response to COVID-19 unemployment and underemployment. And as part of our mission, we serve people from marginalized and BIPOC groups. And we want to increase their representation in the workforce, by providing training, other resources, and helping them to network. And so my question to you is, Chrissy, have you ever been either in a situation where you felt marginalized, or that you can point your finger to marginalization? If you would be able to share that experience with us.
Yeah, as I was thinking this question, I was like, I feel like there's multiple ways I could go, but I decided to go with age. I'm a millennial. I'm in my late 20s, but I've been in my field for almost 4 years now. But I think people consider me as still young, and I'm young. I know I'm young, but I think sometimes people don't give me the credit for the knowledge and experience I already have in the field. And so some days I feel like I'm either not listened to or not taken as seriously just because of some of the negative flack that comes with being a millennial, and also just because I look, some people think I look like a college student. I work on a college campus, but I'm like, no, I've been working full time for a little while now. And I studied higher education, so I have the academic knowledge as well. So I'd say my age, I think sometimes I'm not taken as seriously because of my age.
Yeah, I love that. That was a good example. And yes, you can go so many places with marginalization. And when our presenters share their experience or inexperience with marginalization, we learn, many people believe that marginalization is, race and gender automatically, or ethnicity, religion, those things. But we've been learning here that there's so many different ways that someone can be marginalized, feel marginalized in the workplace. And I asked the question, not as a woe is me so that we can harp on these bad things, but I asked the question so that if we have members in the group who are currently in a situation where they feel like they are marginalized, they can hear from our presenters, who are all successful, in their own right, in their own field, that in spite of marginalization, they have success. So in spite of you saying, yeah, there are times where people are not listening to me, I'm not being heard, and I believe it's because of my age, that you're still able to achieve success, right? So I'm hoping that hearing these experiences can encourage our members if they are currently in a situation where they're feeling marginalized. So thank you for sharing that with us, Chrissy. My second question is my favorite question, and you are younger, right? So what would you, if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell a younger Chrissy, and even younger Chrissy, that you think would help her on her career journey? If you could just tap yourself on the shoulder, what would you say?
I would say just, since I have a master's already, I would have just went for my master's in mental health counseling then instead of my master's in higher education. There's kind of this like, I don't want to say misconception, but there's like almost like you feel like you have to, if you're going to be in higher ed, you feel like you have to get your master's in higher education in order to get a job. When in reality, if I had gotten that master's in mental health counseling back then, I think I would have, been able to market myself better, but I probably would have been a licensed counselor by now. But I'd say just go with like your gut instinct instead of like trying to please other people. And I know that's cliche, but I would have went for it then had I known what I know now.
I hear you. And there are a couple other people in the group that I'm going to connect you with. Thank you for sharing that. We have quite a few higher ed folks and some counselors in the group in terms of psychologists or licensed clinical social workers who are now counseling. So I'll connect you with a couple of them in the group. Actually, we have one who's going to be presenting soon, and they'll be good connections for you. All right, so guys, let me look and see, because this is my final question, and maybe this is my second favorite question. have anything, but that's cool. Again, thank you. Thank you, Chrissy, for sharing with us. I do appreciate you because everything we do here is because of professionals like you giving us their time for free. And I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. So thank you. You could have been doing anything else on a Saturday, like watching Netflix or TikToking or, editing your podcast, which is interesting. I've never been on TikTok. So and that is an age thing, I'm a Facebook kind of girl, and I can do IG. That's about it. I have Twitter, but I don't really know how Twitter works. I haven't had it, for years, but I don't know. I'm old. So, and TikTok probably moved too quick for me. What was the other one? I don't even know if it's still in existence. The Snapchat, that moved too quick for me. So I never got on it. I looked at it on someone's phone and I was like, nah, that's not for me. So yeah, it's like this is moving too fast. If now you gave us some takeaways, and they're really good takeaways, right? But if you had to just whittle it down to one thing, it could be something that you've already said, or a theme that you'd like us to walk away. What would you want us to walk away with today if we only had one takeaway?
Yeah, I think it's just finding that balance between, accepting what the situation we're in currently, accepting it that it does, for lack of better words, it sucks right now. Like, honestly, I think just accepting that, but then also on the flip side, yeah, we're not in the best of situations right now, but I still have control on some things that I can do for myself. So finding that balance between accepting it is what it is type of thing, but also okay, it still might be like this, but I still do have some aspects of your control. So I think just realizing that you still have some control right now, if you can look beyond the situation that we're in. So I'd say just asking yourself those questions: what do I have control over, and what steps can I take, whether it's daily, weekly, but to be able to still advance forward and build that resiliency and recovery.
I love it. Prior to coming into this and reading about this presentation, that was one of the things that I said, even for myself through this, through COVID. So now we've been in this since March. That of course, there were a lot of times where I focused on the things that were out of my control, and I let those things take me away from the things that were in my control, that if I would have focused on those things, it would have helped me be better equipped to deal with the things that were out of my control, right? And so I love that this presentation is talking about that, because I think we get so caught up in the days, the DAZE, right? These Corona days. That we don't recenter and say, well, I can control this, or even I can control the way I'm going to respond to these crazy things that are going on around me that are out of my control. So I thank you for that. Guys, if you are catching this on the replay, that's great. Just let us know you're catching it on a replay. I will post all of Chrissy's information. Please connect with her. Thank her for giving us her time today. Let her know that you are a CDPD member. You appreciate her. If you are not a CDPD member, join us, all right? Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you found value in this presentation, please share it with your network. Chrissy, thank you. I appreciate you, and have a wonderful Saturday. And if you celebrate, enjoy the holiday.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.